we'd like to officially welcome you to the Connected Mentor launch. Today is December 2nd, 2014, and today the Mentoring Working Group will present our work that resulted from a 2-year collaboration related to mentoring and what that means in out-of-school time learning spaces. I'd like to introduce to you Bernadette Sanchez from DePaul University and Elsa Rodriguez from Hive Chicago. I'm your moderator, Tanae Gray from the Digital Youth Network in Chicago. Of course, we invite you to participate in the chat role on the webinar page, as well as participate in real time via Twitter by using hashtag HiveBuzz and hashtag ConnectedMentor. Today, we are pleased to have several guests with us. Dixie Ching from Hive New York, Jeremy Dunn from Chicago Public Library, Mike Geringer from Mentor, National Mentoring Partnership, Jamila Jeffrey from After School Matters, Natalie Rader from Adler Planetarium, and last but surely not least, Ashlyn Sparrow from CI3's Game Changer at the University of Chicago. Thank you all for joining us today. So we're going to go ahead, and I'd like to actually do an introduction to the project, tell you a little bit about how this came about. The Connected Mentor Project is a collaboration between Hive, DePaul, and the Digital Youth Network that includes Elsa Rodriguez, Bernadette Sanchez, and myself. We are a team of researchers, practitioners, and designers. The goal of this project was to create a toolkit in the form of a website that describes how adults can best engage youth and includes making relationships a key part of youth programming. The website includes several sections, such as the About section, and that section explains how the project happened. Then you have the Framework section that describes the mentoring framework itself. Following that is the Youth Voices section that explains the research that came out of the focus groups we held with youth from different youth-serving organizations. And then we have the Best Practices section, and this includes a lot of suggested activities, and organization practices that a lot of the Hive organizations shared with us in terms of what they use to engage and to get to know the youth that they work with. Then we have a resources section, and that section includes articles that informed the development of the mentoring framework itself, as well as other resources from the mentoring community. We also have a blog section, and finally a discussion board that we hope folks will begin to use after this webinar. We decided that we wanted the work to be represented in the format of a website. And some of the reasons we thought a website would be a great way to communicate this work was we wanted folks to understand the story of our project. We wanted folks to really understand what we engaged in and how we went about understanding what mentoring means in out-of-school spaces. We want the website to be used as a resource for adults working with youth and or youth-serving organizations. We hope that the website can begin to start, or it can start this building of shared language and shared practices in terms of how adults and youth work together. We hope that the website can be used or to be shared with your staff, your facilitators, and mentors. We hope that the website can help organizations think about how to build effective relationships between adults and youth in programs that support connected learning. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elsa. She's going to talk a little bit about relationship building and connected learning. Elsa?
All right. Hello. Hi, everybody. So as we dive in, what we're going to do next is kind of go through each of the tabs of the website, and I want to invite folks to join us at home or who are tuning in. So please go ahead and type in www.connectedmentor.com to be able to join us fully. We've taken some screenshots of our website for just ease of showing it here today. But go ahead and join us, and we're starting on the About page. So what I want to talk to you really briefly is kind of the one of our main motivating items for doing this work was really exploring how relationships play out in an out-of-school time space. And starting in the Hive Chicago network, where enacting connected learning is really important, we were able to see how those relationships play out. And in some of the literature that we use to talk about our framework and build our framework, we really learned that without a strong relationship, any intervention, any program, project, regardless of the strength of the project itself, will be less efficient than with a relationship. And in the connected learning environment, that's specifically really important. On your screen, you should see the 3 connected learning spheres: academic, interest-driven, and peer culture. And navigating youth through those spheres is not a small task. To be able to ensure that a true learning journey is happening, that you're able to scaffold, provide the right resources, connect a young person to different networks, relationships are essential. Otherwise, we really fail to know enough about the young person, their needs, where their skills are, what their aspirations might be, to properly scaffold, direct, and guide them toward those aspirations. For example, many of us know we may be teaching a program around science, and if we don't know enough about the young person, we may miss an opportunity to connect a young person who's really a budding architect or artist to a program, because we need to see more of their personality beyond the context that we're serving them in. So that was a key part of everything we did in this framework and this project, looking at the relationship. And Bernadette will talk a little bit more about this, but we also really wanted to explore what mentoring is and is not in the informal spaces, in a hangout, mess around, geeking out space, a Homago space, in a pop-up space, and in short instances of connection with young people and adults. So that's how our project plays into connected learning and our belief that a connected mentor is necessary to really move young people through that experience and through those pathways and learning journey. So next, I want to go over to the best practices page. So for those who are joining us at home, you're going to go ahead and tab over to the best practices page. And I'm going to talk about this and the other page just to give you a sense of the kind of resources that we compiled that are available. This page is sourced from 16 organizations across the Hive Chicago network. And what you see here are practices and strategies used in programs for very specific things. So on this page, you have a few options for what you can expand, but to give you a sense, the first thing is you can learn more activities and program structure toward establishing a sense of belonging in your program amongst youth and just with individual young people as well. You can also expand a section on strategies for building a participatory community that is relevant and connected to young people's lives. You can also expand a section on tips from adults themselves and how they individually connect opportunities for connections with young people or with groups of young people in their programs. You can also learn about connections with young people that you interact with and see on a very limited basis. And finally, you can learn more about strategies for retention. So that is the best practices page. Again, this is sourced from 16 organizations in Hive Chicago. And what is interesting there is that we're talking about many different contexts and content all coming together to give us a lot of information around these few points. So the next resource I want to talk about is the Youth Voices tab. So if you go ahead and click there, you'll populate a page with our Youth Voices project. And this was actually suggested by many mentors in the out-of-school time space that we spoke to. They suggested we go directly to the young people and learn from their perspective what allows them or does not allow them to connect with adults that occupy their program space. So in response to that, we had a few focus sessions with youth from several different organizations. And as a complement to what the adults spoke to us as best practices, this is from the teens themselves through various conversations, several different areas on how they interact with adults and what really works and what does not work. So here you can see, if you scroll down, you'll see that there's a section on positive characteristics, and their youth are describing what characteristics an adult that they find in ease of connection exhibits. There's also negative characteristics section right under that, which what can deter or prevent a young person from engaging more deeply in a program or with an organization. Next, you can see environmental elements. So that's more about the space and the setup of the space that is inviting or really promotes connections for young people. And finally, there's a section on a variety of ways that teens find that adults help them grow in programming. And there's a few others beyond that, but I wanted to highlight those just given time. So you'll learn more about the framework itself and on the theoretical side, but we did want to just highlight some of the resources on this website. And in closing off the section, we just wanted to say that programs better when relationships with participants are a key focus and are intentionally planned for creating relationships. And another key part of our project was that we really wanted to help any and all adults in program spaces in which youth are active to begin identifying themselves as folks who can actually contribute to increasing positive relational connections. So Bernadette will discuss more about how our project looks at all those spaces and the variety of adults present in those different spaces. But again, these are two areas that you can maybe use with staff as self-reflection. And again, this section in particular was by the young people that did a focus group with us.
Thanks, Elsa. I'm Bernadette Sanchez, and I'm at DePaul University, and I worked here with Tanae and Elsa on developing, this toolkit that we put on the website. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the framework that we developed based on the research that Elsa just described, and we also did a series of workshops with staff who were part of the Hive Chicago. And in this framework, we try to describe the different roles that adults might play in different connected learning spaces. And also, when we created this, we consulted with research on developmental relationships, on youth mentoring, and also youth staff relationships in out-of-school time. So we try to look at, different sources in terms of, how to create something that would apply to these different connected learning spaces in out-of-school time. So here we describe 3 roles that adults might play, and the roles vary by time and space. So with regard to time, there are relationships that might be shorter or longer in duration. However, that's defined by the setting and the staff in that setting. So on the left side, you have shorter-term interactions, or what we call mentoring moments. And on the right side, you have longer-term relationships, or programs where youth and adults get to know each other over a longer period of time. And then with regard to space, at the top you have unstructured settings, and at the bottom you have structured settings or programs. In a structured setting, there's a specific activity that's taking place or content that's being presented, whereas in an unstructured setting there might be informal conversations, or informal time that's happening within a program, or it might be an unstructured space such as a drop-in setting. So here we have, let me describe the 3 roles for you. First, we have the content mentor, and that's an individual who enters a structured space or setting to deliver content to youth for a shorter period of time. So during that person's time in the setting, they might have the opportunity for mentoring moments with youth. And then we have the program mentor. And the program mentor is a longer-term staff member who's in the setting, and that person's planning the curriculum for the program, they're managing the program, and they have the opportunity to develop mentoring relationships because they're spending more time with youth. And then at the top, we have natural mentors. So these could be individuals who are in these unstructured spaces, such as a drop-in setting, and it could be anyone who's working there, such as, let's say, a security guard that some of our youth talked about. They were able to develop or have, natural mentoring relationships with security guards. Or it could be someone who has more involvement with the youth in a program, but then over time they become natural mentors. So that's an overview of the framework page. And then next, I want to bring you over to the discussion board. So for those of you at home, if you could click on that. And here's where we invite people to continue the conversation about these 3 roles, about these best practices in terms of how to engage youth, and what it is that you've talked about, in our focus groups, about what are the positive and negative characteristics that adults can use to engage them. And we want this to be an opportunity for folks to create an intentional mentoring community. So now I want to hand it over to Tanae, who's going to moderate a discussion about what you just saw here in our website, in our toolkit.
So thanks, Bernadette, and thanks, Elsa, for a really great presentation on the work that we've done together. We'd like to open up the floor now to our panelists, if you will, and really respond to the question. We asked folks to, on the website, take a look at it prior to engage in this. And so if you could share with the work that you do with youth or the communities you serve. I'm going to open up the floor, and whoever would like to respond to that question first, please go ahead.
And Janae, I think we lost you for a second there to repeat the question.
Okay.
What are some reflections on this website, and this is to our panel here, as it relates to your work, your personal practice, or the communities you serve? So opening the floor, very general, we'd love to hear from you on some reflections. And I think maybe we'll just let you guys go ahead and start, whoever has a comment.
So this is Mike Geringer with Mentor, the National Mentoring Partnership. Hi, everyone. I just wanted to say, first off, congratulations for building a really nice website and kind of getting this going and moving into this space. The way you're approaching this idea of kind of mentoring moments and this kind of the framework that you've put together is something that I'm a big fan of, and it actually mirrors a lot of work that we're thinking about diving into at Mentor and kind of a national level. One of the things that came out of our Mentoring Effect report a year ago was that most young people told us in this kind of nationally representative survey we did that they're not getting their mentoring from a formal mentor in a program, a Big Brothers Big Sisters or something similar to that. I mean, some youth obviously are, and we're trying to scale up those programs to serve youth who need it the most, but most young people get their mentoring from a teacher or a neighbor or a coach or a pastor or whoever it may be in their life. And what we've been trying to wrestle with at Mentor is what do we do as a mentoring movement of formal programs to kind of help scale that mentoring up. If our goal is to provide a mentor to every youth who needs one, I think as a mentoring field, we need to come to terms with the fact that scaling that up may not come through formal programs. And so I'm very happy to see you guys intentionally thinking about how folks in after-school settings or other youth-serving organizations and programs can have their relationships be a little bit deeper, a little bit more meaningful, a little bit more developmental in focus, and providing these kinds of tips and tools, as well as a place for them to discuss the art of doing that. I think in some ways, if you're a content deliverer to young people, it's hard to move into that mentoring space. I know that we work a lot with folks at the Search Institute who've done a lot of research around developmental relationships, and they go out and they talk to teachers and almost have to remind teachers of the things that they knew coming out of their education training, right? And that's the importance of these relationships and how to go about connecting with a young person beyond just, oh, I'm teaching you some content. And so I think your website's a great start at teaching folks about that. It's something that I'm going to be promoting through Mentors National Networks. And we're actually doing a webinar in the middle of December on natural and informal mentoring and kind of what do we do about that as a mentoring movement. And so I'll be sure to bring up your website on that webinar and let folks know about it. So you might see a spike in traffic in the middle of December. So.
Wow, thanks, Mike. We really appreciate your comments, and we really appreciate you sharing our website with a broader audience. I think that's one of our hopes, is that we expand our outreach and get our work out there to others, and with the hope that the website can have some impact and actually contribute to the thought leaders that are doing this work, and help adults think about intentional ways that they can work with youth. So we really appreciate your comment, and we really appreciate you sharing the website with others.
Sure, no problem.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I'll chime in here from Chicago Public Library. Everybody hear me all right? I just want to thank you guys for pulling all this together as well. Echo Mike's commendation there, and sorry if there's some banging up above. They're replacing our roof. But I really see being able to use this resource right away in a couple of ways. One, with our U-Media programs at Chicago Public Library, we are expanding our mentor model and looking for various types of mentors to help in our after-school programs, whether it's college interns or professionals from local tech companies or other corporate volunteers. And I think especially the best practices and the youth voices sections are going to be really great places just to point people to kind of orient how we want to introduce them to our program, because this website really reflects what we value in mentors. I think another great application for us is with the creation of our new Teen Services Department, which is relatively new, and many new teen library staff. We're introducing the teen demographic to many library locations where that may not be a strong practice yet. And that also requires that our library staff are introduced to the developmental phases of adolescence and what it means to structure a space and an environment and support the teen librarian in that. So youth are welcome, and they are able to develop a sense of ownership and agency in being part of that library space. So this is going to be a really great resource for us, so congratulations.
Thank you, Jeremy. That's great. I'm glad to hear that you see this website types of folks that will be working in the space, and again, structure a space, but most importantly, how to welcome youth to that space, and what are some of the strategies and best practices from the best practices section and the youth voices section that can inform some of the activities that some of those folks might create in an effort to welcome youth to the spaces. So thank you so much. That's really helpful to hear.
This is Jamila from After School Matters, and just to echo what Mike and Jeremy have said, so this is a fantastic website. Congratulations on putting all of this great work together and developing such a great resource for everyone, and for hosting this webinar. So kudos to all of you and to the team. And then secondly, really exactly what Jeremy just said about the guest speakers that are coming into U-Media, certainly for After School Matters. We have got a lot of great corporate volunteership that happens. Lots of people want to come in, and they do really great activities that are sort of one-time programs with our young people. And I think what that really nice graphic that Bernadette that you showed, it really shows how somebody who is a volunteer who's coming in sort of this structured way, and I forgot what it was called. What was it in the framework? I think you called it not the long term, but the short term, right? The short term content mentor. That for that person who's coming in one time to know that he or she is a mentor in that short period of time, and sort of structuring their time in that mentorship framework is really helpful. And I think it sort of provides a way for us to think about, corporate volunteership as something that's really important, not only for the content, but also for the fact that they're mentoring young people in a short period of time.
I also want to echo off of what Jamila said. This is Ashlyn from Game Changer. We are a very young organization. We're only about 2 years old, and we've been, running programs for these 2 years, and it's nice to have a framework where we can pull this vocabulary from, because there are a lot of things that we didn't realize, that it actually maps onto something. We bring in 26 college graduate students to be mentors for a 5-week summer program. And so that falls into this program mentor. I think we knew that. But there were also moments where we bring in, STEM professionals for a very short-term moment. And it never really dawned upon us that they are content mentors. We just brought them in as content experts, but they can be mentors. And, running our second program, it became clear that our staff members are actually more on the natural mentor side of things, right? We, make sure that everyone is going where they need to go. We interact with youth. But so I just really love this graphic here. And I've seen this last year, and it's actually, it's an improved graphic too, and it's much easier to read now. But it's just nice to have this framework to draw from, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I also love the idea of a forum, so that people who have been running programs for a very long time can help out younger organizations and develop their mentoring structures. So yeah, excellent job.
Can I chime in really quickly on that point, Ashlyn, and say that this was an iterative process, and you saw it last year because I think in some senses we opened up our process to the Hive network, and just to make sure it made sense with where people were in programming. And thanks to your feedback, we actually sat down with young people, which we had not thought of the onset, but that was a great addition. And I think one thing that we really want to note and really voice leaving this webinar is that this is still iterative. Our project, as projects go, does have a completion date, and it has completed in that sense, but that is why there is a website that has a discussion board, so that feedback, additional resources, Jeremy, if you use this with media and you learn XYZ things that weren't maybe explicit or maybe a little different, that can also become part of this collective knowledge. So really just want to thank you all for how you're thinking about using this. Really encourage you to do so, and then just let, I guess, the audience know that we're open to feedback, and we would really appreciate that as well.
And sort of related to this awesome graphic, it would be, and I know that, as you said, it's iterative and it's a work in progress, it would be great to sort of dissect out what best practices are even within those areas, and maybe at some point even have videos, again, definitely way down the line, but this is already such a great website. I'm excited to share this with our volunteer coordinator.
So thank you, Elsa, for prodding me. I was going to. So I'm Natalie Rader from the Adler Planetarium. I work on teen programs here, and it was really cool to look at this final product as my colleague Jen, who's coughing over here, and I contributed to sort of that. We completed this survey that Tanae sent us, and we shared what we do, and it's really neat to go through and pick out, like, maybe we said that, we definitely didn't say that, and learn so much from our peers. And like Ashlyn and Jamila were referencing, I think this is going to be a really nice tool to use. We have volunteers who are long-term volunteers here who are STEM mentors, but we don't always bring them in for extended periods of time, so it'll be nice for them to be able to place themselves in this sphere it's not the series of spheres that Bernadette developed. It's also thought-provoking in that we are sort of moving into a new physical space on the planetarium grounds, a new classroom that is a multi-purpose room, and we are limited in what we can actually do with that space in terms of decorating the walls, what furniture do we have, reading some of the youth comments about what makes this space inviting is things I've thought about, but it's good to have them called out right there. So we are facing constraints in that. And I think moving towards the more social emotional environment, like the parts we can control, the Connected Mentor website is going to be a really good resource for doing that with intention. So thank you guys.
Hi, do we still have time to for me to just say a few comments? Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I'm Dixie Ching. I'm part of the Hive Research Lab. We are research partners with the Hive Learning Network in New York City. And so it's really wonderful to see how you know, we didn't really have any input into this framework or website, and yet it resonates really well and aligns with what we're seeing here in New York City. So again, this is another reason why I think this is such a great resource, and you guys did such a super job. And yeah, as I was, you know, I observe programs as part of my job here, and I've noticed, you know, these content mentors. Now I have language for it. You know, I used to call them just, you know, teaching artists that were hired, you know, to run a program, and they were developing such great relationships with the youth, you know, that they were teaching, just because the youth could tell that these people had experiences and connections and were just really, you know, good at an interest that these youth were interested in. And I was just hoping for a way to bring them into this youth development world a bit more, and to, you know, leverage this relationship, this strong relationship they were developing even further. And so I just feel like this is a really wonderful first step towards doing that. And much like the Youth Voices section you had on your website, I'd love to see some sort of content mentor, you know, focus group or some sort of reflections based on looking at the framework and the advice you've provided on your website.
Well, we are at time. First of all, I would like to thank you, Dixie, for your comments. Well, much appreciated. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for participating in this webinar today. Your comments, questions, and your thoughts definitely resonate with us as we continue to think about, you know, how we possibly take this work to the next level. I definitely want to emphasize that you know, the website is a work in progress. We welcome any additional resources. It's open to iteration, and so we encourage you to send us anything that you'd like to include in terms of resources. We can post that stuff on the website. Also want to note that Dixie just launched a blog that we all participated in and wrote together. Send that link to the blog about this work and interview where she interviewed all three of us. So we'll send that link for participating today, and we look forward to hearing more about how you make use of the space. Take care.
Bye.